I guess you could say I lived a straightforward life, working for my dad's company. He built it from scratch, and it's one of those big, bustling trading firms downtown. I stuck to my job, didn't really date much. Most evenings were simple, me and Jess, my best friend since high school, hanging out. Jess? She's a whirlwind, always with a new guy on her arm. I lost count a long time ago. One Monday morning, Dad called me into his office, a rare occurrence since he liked us to handle our own corners of the business. "Nellie, I want you to meet someone. This is Tom," he gestured to a man standing beside him, looking all sharp in a business suit. "Tom's joining us from the West Branch. Thought you might show him the ropes." Tom stepped forward, sticking his hand out. "Nice to meet you, Nellie. Heard a lot of good things." His grip was firm, his smile a bit too polished. "Likewise," I replied, trying not to sound too uninterested. I was used to new faces around, but there was something about Tom that didn't sit right. Maybe it was his too smooth demeanor. As weeks turned into months, Tom and I worked closely, and his relentless charm started to chip away at my initial reservations. He'd drop by my office with a coffee just how I like it, black, no sugar, or he'd offer a casual, "Need a hand with that?" whenever I was buried under reports. Then there were the lunches. It began as group things, but somehow we'd end up splitting from the crowd, just the two of us. I wasn't sure when the shift happened, when my thoughts about him started to warm, but they did. Jess, of course, was less than thrilled. We were at her place, a cozy, cluttered apartment she never seemed to stay in long enough to clean. "You're spending a lot of time with the new guy," she noted, eyebrow raised as she sipped her wine. "Yeah, so? He's nice. Nicer than I thought," I defended, feeling a strange need to protect my budding feelings from her scrutiny. "Nice," she mimicked, making it sound like the dirtiest word in the world. "Just be careful, Nell. Guys like that, they know how to make a girl feel special, then bam, they're on to the next conquest." But I didn't listen, not really. It felt too good to have someone see me, really see me, even if it was through what Jess called charm-tinted glasses. It wasn't long before Tom asked me out properly. No work excuses, no accidental meetings. Just a straightforward, "Would you like to have dinner with me?" I said yes. I didn't think much about where it might lead. The day I said yes to Tom wasn't like in the movies. There were no fireworks, no dramatic music swelling in the background. Just a quiet yes at the little Italian place we'd made our spot. He looked like he won the lottery, and honestly, so did I. In the blur that followed, wedding planning took over. My mom, bless her heart, was all over it like white on rice, bustling around with more energy than I'd seen in years. "Nellie, darling, do you like these flowers? What about this color for the bridesmaids?" It was endless. Tom leaned back in his chair during one of the planning sessions, his eyes scanning over the catering menu. "Babe, as long as they have those little shrimp things you love, and maybe some steak, I'm good." Mom shot him a look, her hands on her hips. "Thomas, it's not just about the food. We have to think about the venue, the guest list. Speaking of which, how many are you bringing?" "Oh, just a few folks. My sister, her kids, a couple of buddies from work," Tom replied, trying to sound casual, but I caught the slight tension in his voice when he mentioned his sister. His sister, Sarah, was a single mom with twins. I hadn't met her until the wedding day, and she was as frazzled as any solo parent with two hyper 3-year-olds would be. She was nice, though, kept apologizing for the kids running around like pint-sized tornadoes. Jess, ever the firecracker, was instantly by my side when she saw me stressing over the details. "Nell, chill. It's going to be perfect. You worry too much." I laughed, nudging her with my elbow. "Easy for you to say. You just have to show up and look pretty." The wedding itself was a blur of faces, music, and dancing. I remember looking out at all the people who'd come to celebrate with us, feeling like I was in some kind of dream. Tom was right there, always within reach, his hand finding mine, his smiles just for me. After the honeymoon, which was a week of beachside bliss, reality kicked back in. We moved into the house my parents gifted us, a cozy, 2-story place with a garden that needed some love. It was ours, though, and that felt huge. One evening, after most of the boxes were unpacked, we collapsed on the sofa, a mess of takeout containers between us. "We really did it, huh?" Tom said, a goofy grin on his face as he threw an arm around me. "We did," I agreed, leaning into him. "Feels like playing house, doesn't it?" "Best kind of play," he chuckled, kissing the top of my head. "You're okay with this, right? Me working and you?" I knew what he was asking. We'd talked about it before, the idea of me being a housewife. It wasn't something I ever thought I'd want, but with Tom, it seemed right. "Yeah, I'm good with it. I want to make this a real home, you know?" "Yeah, I know." He squeezed my shoulder. "And hey, maybe soon we'll be adding a little more noise around here, huh?" I smiled at that, the thought of kids running around, filling the house with even more life. "Yeah, maybe." We sat there for a while, just enjoying each other's company, the quiet hum of our new life surrounding us. It felt right, like we were exactly where we were supposed to be. Months turned into years, and that little hope of adding the sound of tiny feet running around the house started to wear me down. Every month was a cycle of hope and disappointment. It wasn't supposed to be this hard, was it? People have kids every day. Why was it different for us? I remember sitting in the doctor's office, feeling like I was about to get my report card. The room smelled like antiseptic and something floral that was probably meant to calm nerves, but just made me more anxious. "Well, Nellie," the doctor started, looking over her glasses at me after checking all the test results. "Everything seems normal. These things sometimes take time. Just keep trying, and try not to worry." Tom was trying to be supportive, but I could tell it was getting to him too. One night over dinner, he reached across the table, taking my hand. "Hey, we're in this together, okay? We're a team, right?" "Right," I agreed, but part of me wondered if I was letting him down. Jess was a whirlwind of support and blunt pep talks. "You're stressing too much. It's like trying to catch a butterfly with a net. Just chill." I rolled my eyes, though her words did ease the tension a bit. "Easy for you to say. You're not the one going through it." She waved a dismissive hand. "True. But I see you, all wound up all the time. It's not gonna help you get pregnant." The conversation shifted when Jess dropped her own bombshell a few weeks later. We were at a cafe, the smell of coffee strong in the air. She had that look, like she was sitting on a secret. Finally, she blurted it out, her eyes gleaming. "I'm pregnant." For a moment, everything stopped. The cafe noise faded into the background, and I felt a mix of joy and an inexplicable sting. Jess, that's amazing." I managed, my voice brighter than I felt. "Yeah, it's kinda crazy, right? I mean, I wasn't even trying," she added, then winced, realizing how her words might sound to me. "Who's the dad?" I asked, genuinely curious, despite the ache in my chest. She shrugged, her expression unreadable. "Just some guy. You don't know him. Anyway, we're not together or anything. It's just me and this little bean." I nodded, the news settling in. I was happy for her, really. But it was a stark reminder of what I didn't have. As we talked more, her excitement infectious, I felt my own worries slip away, replaced by something like hope. Maybe not all paths were straight. Maybe some had detours that still led to beautiful places. The months after Jess had her baby boy were a whirl of emotions. I visited her as soon as she was settled back home, carrying the plush, overpriced baby blanket I'd picked out, something soft enough for royalty. Jess seemed overwhelmed but happy, a tired smile permanently etched on her face. "God, Nellie, it's insane. I barely have time to shower, let alone host visits," she confessed as we sat on her cluttered couch, her new baby cradled in her arms. "I totally get it," I reassured her, trying not to feel sidelined. Just know I'm here, whenever you need a break or just want to scream into a pillow. Back at home, things were different. Tom's weekend trips to help his sister, Sarah, with her twins, became more frequent. Every time he packed up for another visit, I offered to come along. Let me help, it'll be fun. The kids are great, I'd suggest, trying to sound cheerful. Nah, you don't need to deal with all that chaos. I got it, he'd insist, shutting down the conversation before it could grow. Sarah's going through a lot. I just want to be there for her, you know? So, I stayed back, filled the silence of our home with new projects. I bought gifts for the twins, soft toys, and books, things I hoped would make their days brighter. Give these to the kids, I'd tell Tom, handing over the brightly wrapped packages. Sure thing, babe. They'll love this, he'd say, packing them away in his overnight bag. One Saturday, with Tom away supposedly buried in kid duty, I headed to the mall to pick up some new tablecloths and napkins for our home. Something to brighten up the place. As I walked through the aisles, picking through patterns and fabrics, a familiar laugh caught my attention. There, in the middle of the mall, was Sarah, her twins tugging at each corner of her purse, none the worse for wear. Surprised, I approached them, my heart starting to race for reasons I couldn't pin down. Sarah, what a surprise, I exclaimed, perhaps a little too loudly. Nellie, oh my goodness, it's so good to see you. Sarah beamed, herding her kids closer. We're just picking up some school supplies. We decided to grab coffee at a small cafe inside the mall. As we settled down, the kids distracted with some coloring books, I ventured cautiously. So, Tom's been a big help on the weekends, huh? Sarah's face clouded with confusion. Tom? Oh, he hasn't been over in months. Things have been crazy, and he's busy, you know. We mostly just text. Her words hit me like a slap. Oh, but he's there now, right? Helping out? My voice was thin, hopeful. No, haven't seen him. Is everything okay, Nellie? Sarah's concern was genuine, but it only twisted the knife deeper. I nodded, pasting on a smile. Yeah, all good. Must have misunderstood his plans. We chatted a bit longer, but I barely heard her. My mind was racing, piecing together the lies. He wasn't with his sister. He hadn't been for a long time. Where was he? What was he doing? The drive home was a blur. I kept telling myself to breathe, to not let panic take over. But inside, my world was crumbling. The trust I'd had, the life we'd built, it all felt like a house of cards, ready to topple at the slightest touch. The house was too quiet, the silence echoing off the walls like a bad omen. I needed answers. I needed to know if my instincts, now screaming betrayal, were right. Tom's office was at the end of the hallway, a space where he spent his evenings working, or so he said. I walked over to his desk, my hands slightly trembling as I contemplated where to start looking. His laptop sat there, closed but not asleep, its power light pulsing softly. I opened the laptop, hesitating for a moment before I typed in the password. He'd told me once, carelessly, not thinking I'd ever have a reason to use it. The screen lit up, revealing his cluttered desktop filled with folders and documents. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly. Maybe a receipt, an email, anything that could explain the sinking feeling in my gut. I clicked through folders, finding nothing but work files and boring reports. My hope was dwindling, replaced by frustration and a growing sense of foolishness. Maybe I was overreacting. But then, I noticed a folder tucked away at the bottom of the screen, labeled simply Miscellaneous. It was a strange place for such a folder, hidden among spreadsheets and business plans. Curiosity piqued, I opened it. There were photos. My breath caught as I clicked on the first image. It was Tom, and there, far too close, was Jess. A passionate, intimate kiss that you don't share with just anyone. And in another, he was holding her baby, looking down at him with a tenderness he'd never shown even in our talks of having our own. I felt cold, frozen in place as the truth settled in. My husband was cheating on me. With Jess. The world seemed to tilt, a vertigo of betrayal spinning me around. I needed to hear his voice, needed to know what he'd say. Shaking, I grabbed my phone and dialed his number. He picked up almost immediately. "Hey, babe." Tom's voice was casual, too casual. "What's up? Where are you?" I managed to say, my voice steady, despite the turmoil inside. "Oh, just at Sarah's. Helping her with the kids. You know how it is," he replied smoothly. A child's scream cut through the background, lending credence to his lie. The rest of the weekend passed in a blur. When Tom came home, he was the picture of a loving husband, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. I acted the part of the none the wiser wife, but inside, I was reeling, planning, thinking of my next steps. By Monday, I had made up my mind. I called a private detective, a number given by a friend who had gone through something similar. We met at a coffee shop, a public place where I could keep my composure. "I need to know everything," I told him, my voice low. "Can you do that?" He nodded, his expression grave. "It'll take a couple of weeks. I'll get you everything you need to know." I went home to play the part of the trusting wife a little longer, the weight of my secret knowledge pressing down on me like a physical burden. 2 agonizing weeks of playing the doting wife finally culminated on a crisp Saturday morning. Tom had left early, his bag packed for another weekend at his sister's. I was nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee when the call came. It was the detective, his voice low and even. "I have the results," he said. "Can we meet?" "There's a cafe downtown, quiet enough for a conversation." "See you there," I said, already heading upstairs to get dressed. The drive to the cafe was a blur, my mind racing through 1,000 scenarios. What would the evidence show? Was there a chance, any chance at all, that I was wrong about Tom? Those hopes were dashed the moment the detective laid the photographs on the table between us. There was Tom and Jess, not just together, but intimate, affectionate. The detective's voice was a steady stream, but I only caught pieces, lost in the visual proof of betrayal. "And here are the invoices," he was saying, sliding another batch of papers across to me. "About $35,000 in total. All paid to cover medical expenses for the delivery. His name is on the receipts." Back home, I went straight to our bedroom. The closet was full of Tom's clothes, his scent, his presence. With a grim determination, I pulled out suitcases and began packing. Every shirt, every pair of jeans, every sock, I removed them from my life with a meticulousness that was almost surgical. Once everything was packed, I called a courier service. "I have a few items that need immediate delivery," I told them, my voice flat. The address I gave was Jess's. With his belongings gone, my next step was to secure my sanctuary. I called a locksmith and had all the locks in the house changed. No trace of Tom was left accessible, not even a way in. Feeling both emptied and resolute, I drove to my parents' house. My mother opened the door, her expression turning from surprise to concern in an instant. "Mom, I need to talk to both of you," I said as I walked in, my father appearing in the hallway behind her. In the living room, I laid everything out, the photos, the receipts, the betrayal. My father's face grew dark with each revelation, his disappointment palpable. "You need to divorce him, Nellie," he said, his voice firm. "He's not the man we thought he was." "I've already started the process," I replied, pulling out the divorce papers from my bag. I needed you to know." Mom reached out, her hand covering mine. "We're here for you, darling. Whatever you need." That evening, as the sky darkened and a quiet settled over my parents' home, my phone began to light up relentlessly. First, it was Tom, his calls coming in one after another. When I didn't answer, the buzzing switched to texts. "Babe, why is the door locked? My key won't work. What's going on?" I stared at the screen, feeling a hollow satisfaction in ignoring him. Then Jess started calling. I didn't need to pick up to know why. Confusion, betrayal, a messy mix of emotions that I no longer cared to understand. It was late when I heard the car pull up. The sound of a door slamming was followed by urgent footsteps up the driveway. Tom didn't bother to knock, he burst through the front door, his face flushed with anger and confusion. "What's this about, Nellie? Why are my things at Jess's? Why can't I get into my own house?" His voice was loud, too loud, filling the space with a palpable tension. I was sitting in the living room with my parents. I stood slowly, meeting his gaze with a calm I didn't feel. "How do you know your things are with Jess? Weren't you supposed to be at your sister's all weekend?" Tom's face went pale, his eyes darting around as if looking for an exit or an excuse. He opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Dad stood up, his presence commanding. "You've been lying, Tom. To my daughter, to all of us. I trusted you, thought of you as a son, even wanted to make you a successor to my business." Tom's eyes widened, realizing the gravity of his situation. "I can explain." "What?" "Explain how you planned to take half of what I built. How you were using my daughter." "We know everything, Tom. The detective provided recordings of your conversations with Jess. Planning your future with her, at the expense of your marriage." Tom sank to his knees, his hands clasped in front of him. "Nellie, please, I'm sorry. It meant nothing, I swear. It was just a mistake." I felt my mom's hand on my shoulder, her touch reassuring. I looked down at the man I had once loved, now just a stranger groveling on my parents' floor. Just a mistake that costs $35,000 and a betrayal? I asked, the disgust in my voice clear. "You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you got caught." Reaching into the folder I had brought with me, I pulled out the divorce papers, holding them out to him. "Here. I want you out of my life, for good." Tom reached for the papers, his hand shaking. He stood, the fight gone from him, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Before he could leave, Dad stepped forward, his voice booming. "And you're fired, Tom. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the financial repercussions of your actions." A few days after the confrontation with Tom, I was sitting in the quiet of my new morning routine when my phone rang. The screen flashed Jess's name, and for a moment, I considered not answering. But I needed to face this part of my past too, if I was ever going to move forward. "What's this about a lawsuit, Nellie?" Jess's voice was sharp, tinged with disbelief as soon as I picked up. "Yes, I filed for financial compensation. For the betrayal," I replied, my voice steady despite the churn of emotions. "You can't be serious," she exclaimed. "Nellie, come on, can't we talk about this? You know I've always been here for you." "Here for me? Jess, you betrayed me at the deepest level. Talking isn't going to change what you did," I said, feeling a bitter edge creep into my words. As silence filled the brief gap, I heard her breathe heavily. "I always knew it," she finally hissed. "You think you're so perfect with your perfect little life. I was always in your shadow, always the second choice to every guy. You have everything, and I have nothing. Jess, feeling inferior doesn't give you the right to destroy other people's lives. I'm sorry you felt that way, but it doesn't justify what you did," I replied, my voice cold and distant now. I hung up, cutting off any further venom she might have spewed. The lawsuit went to court, and it was as messy and painful as I had anticipated. But in the end, the judge ruled in my favor. Tom and Jess were ordered to pay a significant sum in damages. It wasn't about the money, no amount could undo the betrayal, but it was about acknowledgement, about seeing some semblance of justice. Word got around, as it always does in small towns. I heard from mutual friends that Tom had indeed married Jess, but the marriage crumbled just as quickly when he discovered her child wasn't his. The irony of it all would have been laughable if it hadn't been so tragic. Tom tried to reach out once, a feeble attempt to apologize or explain, perhaps looking for some absolution I wasn't ready to give. I didn't need his explanations anymore, his actions had spoken more clearly than his words ever could. He ended up drifting from one low-paying job to another, his once promising career in shambles. As for Jess, life had become a struggle, raising her child alone without the affluent lifestyle she had tried to secure by betraying me. I sometimes wondered if she regretted her decisions, if the harsh reality of her actions had finally sunk in. Through it all, I learned about resilience. I learned that the foundations you build in your life, the people you choose to trust, and the decisions you make, both good and bad, shape the path you walk. I was rebuilding mine, with each day bringing a little more strength, a little more hope,